everybody? Welcome back to the Hardcore Italians podcast. Today, we're excited to welcome an incredible guest with an incredible career in acting, writing, and podcasting. Most know him as Bobby Baccalieri from The Sopranos, but he's done so much more. He plays Anthony Abetamarco on Blue Bloods and previously starred in The Secret Life of the American Teenager. He's also lent his voice to Open Season, Justice League Unlimited, and American Dad, and even performed Guys and Dolls at Carnegie Hall. As an author, he's written the popular Goomba book series, including A Goomba's Guide to Life, and co-authored the New York Times bestseller, Woke Up This Morning, The Definitive Oral History of The Sopranos. He also co-hosted the Webby Award-winning podcast, Talking Sopranos with Michael Imperioli, giving fans an inside look at the legendary show. Please welcome the amazing Steve Schirripa. Steve, thank you once again for joining us today, man.
Sure, man. Nice to see you guys.
Thank you.
Of course. Before we get into anything, did you get the merch that we sent over? How did it all
Yeah,
feel?
yeah, I got it. What did I got? You sent me a nice bag here. Hang on. Let's see what we got here. Sent me nice stuff.
Look at that. I got a guy.
It's open. I was out of town working, but good stuff. You guys are very generous.
Of course.
Man. Glad you
I
like
like
it.
it. I like it. I got to give it to my daughters. Very nice. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Now I'm
Appreciate
thinking
that.
about it, I should have sent some dog stuff.
You
I'm
got
gonna-
dog stuff?
Yeah, we have like bandanas and it's got the cornicello like on the bandana.
Oh, you got to send me that for Willie Boy, my
Yeah, I
boy.
know. Yeah, I'll send something over for sure. I just thought
All right.
I'd get something over.
That's awesome. Yeah, to kick things off, I want to actually start off with a fun fact that many people may not know about. I thought it was really interesting that you and the cast were always on edge about your characters potentially getting killed off in The Sopranos. And it's interesting because in mob movies and shows, there's always that unexpected deaths happening. Like, for example, in Goodfellas, Tommy thinks he's going to get made, he ends up getting whacked. And it came unexpectedly, no one expected it. But was that fear of getting killed off something you and the other actors did it help fuel your performances?
Well, I don't know about fuel the performances, but I think it kept you in line. I mean, there was no prima donnas. I think that might have been part of it because honestly, if you rock the boat, there was a good possibility. Listen, once they killed off Big Pussy, then all bets were off. They killed off a main character, probably one of the few times or first times in TV history that a main character was killed off the show. They didn't kill off, Ross on Friends. They didn't have to worry about that, or Gilligan on Gilligan's Island. They weren't getting killed, but it was a real concern. And the more they gave you to do, the more your character, they gave a storyline, they gave you an arc. The more that they gave you, the better chance they were going to kill you. It was a real concern with everyone. I even think Jim at one point, believe it or not, kind of said, he thought they're going to kill him off, But the only character that couldn't have gotten killed off really was Tony Soprano. Everybody else was expendable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
What?
people would, look, you get the script. They used to FedEx it to you in those days. You go open it up. Okay, I'm in it. You go to the back. Did they kill me? It was a real concern.
Yeah.
Oh my
Also, too,
God.
but what's also interesting about this show and about the way they killed people, like it almost made you question, like, should they have done it? For example, with Adriana, how they killed her. A lot of people were like, should they have killed her? I know she was obviously an informant. She was saying stuff to the detectives, but even with Christopher, a lot of people gave Tony backlash for killing Christopher. But then again, there's that other side that if he didn't, he could have put the Christopher's daughter would have been in jeopardy. So there was also those things I think the show did very well. It balanced both
Well, you
sides.
you also have to remember. Look, early on in the show, the main character, Tony Soprano, takes his daughter to look at colleges. She sees the guy that was an informant. Remember that?
Yep.
I think the name of it's called college or university, whatever. I think
Yeah.
it's college. And HBO did not want, they said the main character can't kill anyone. We'll lose the audience. And David Chase said, if he doesn't kill him, we'll lose the audience. This is real. This is what really happened in real life. And so His boss of the New Jersey family runs into this rat and he kills him, even though he was there, you know, taking his daughter to school. So, I mean, do you let it slide? As much as we love Big Pussy, do we let it slide? You know, Adriana, beloved character. Everyone felt bad that they killed her, but she was an informant. This is the mob. They're bad people.
Yeah,
Not good
exactly.
people. They do bad things.
Yeah,
Isn't
exactly.
that crazy though? Isn't that crazy though, Steve? Like they're bad people, but then again, Tony, you fall in love with the guy. You fall in love
Well,
with almost every character.
well, that's the whole thing. You fall in
Yeah.
love with him, you fall in love with Tony Soprano. You root for him. Anti-hero, bad guy.
Hmm.
He does everything wrong.
Yeah.
He-
That's what's
Everything
crazy
wrong.
about the
And
writing.
he doesn't just do it to other mobsters.
Mhm.
Innocent people are getting robbed, shaking them down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He does the whole, he loves his family, but he's a horrible human being. But yet, we love him.
Yeah. It's one of the beauties in the show for sure. And tell me a little bit too about, I feel like COVID hit and then you guys had Talking Sopranos and just with the internet, there's tons of memes and people are dressing up Halloween like as Sopranos characters. And I feel like when COVID happened, there was a big like second wind of it coming back, all the streaming platforms having it, HBO. Do you think the show is bigger now than when it originally aired, or how do you feel about the whole, internet playing
Yeah,
a
I think
role?
so. I think with streaming, and it's all over the world,
Hmm.
I think also kids that were too young. I mean, the show's been off the air. It's coming up on 18 years. Kids that were too young to watch it back then are watching it now. They're in their late teens and their 20s. Uh, it was hard to get in other countries. Canada was a year behind, and you know, Europe was a year or two behind, and now with streaming, it is all over the world. There's more people watching it now than watched it then. Also, during COVID, it was the second most watched show.
Oh,
People were hunkered down. A lot of people rewatched the show. I think a lot of people forgot about it. Hey, not forgot the show, but how great it was.
yeah.
Wow, this really holds up. It's like it was written yesterday. These things still matter. You
Hmm.
know, we we had plans to do it before COVID, the podcast. We had plans to start it. Then the podcast hit, and then we said, well, who the heck really cares about a podcast now? The world's coming to an end.
Yeah.
We were getting all these messages saying, "Hey, we really could use it now. We could use a podcast. Hey, come on." So me and Michael said, "Let's try it. See how it goes." It took off. People were interested. We got millions of watchers and listeners, and it kind of struck a chord. We kind of tried to be funny, and it was all new to us. The first five or six podcasts are terrible, and then we kind of got into a groove, and we made calls, and we got almost everybody as guests, and it was all this renewed interest. And I think if you're a Soprano fan, you really love the podcast, and now it's on HBO Max. We sold it to HBO Max, and they added clips. So,
Wow.
but it is certainly more popular now than it was, in my opinion.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy
And it's
story though.
yeah, it's also cool because now you and Michael and actually Vincent Pastore are actually doing live shows for Talking Sopranos. Just to name a couple of the upcoming events, you got at the Paramount Hudson Valley Theater in Peaksville on April 5th and Sony Hall in Manhattan on August 16th. Uh, what's great about these shows is that they include live conversations about The Sopranos, but also a Q&A with the audience. Now, obviously, the show it ended a long time ago, but when fans ask you questions, has there ever been any questions where you kind of sit back and you go, oh, I didn't think about that, or maybe something you forgot or never even really considered before? Has that ever happened?
Well, we've been doing this show for years. Tony Sirico used to do it with us, and then Vinny came along, and we've toured Australia with it. where it was extremely popular. I mean, it was crazy in Australia. That was back in 2019. We've done it all over the country. We've yet to do it in Canada, believe it or not. But we usually sell out, and we sell out 12, 13, 14, 1,500 seater. We have a comedian, Joey Cola. We show clips, we show slides, we tell funny behind the scenes stories that only people that were there would know. We give you a little peek behind the curtain. We do a Q&A at some point, and usually it's the typical question: what happened to the Russian? What does the ending mean? Blah blah blah. We got hit with a few questions. Some people are very smart, very knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than us. A good question that was asked: somebody said if Nancy Marchand, who played Livia, hadn't passed away, what would have happened? Because don't forget, she was going to snitch on Tony
Yep.
for that whole thing, and then she tried to get Tony killed, and she teamed up with Uncle Junior, and what was going to happen? We do know this. Aida Totoro, who played Janice, was off the show. After she killed Richie Aprile, they sent her away. She was gone. Remember, they got on the bus and was going back to Seattle. But when
Yeah.
Nancy passed away, they brought Janice back, Aida back. And she kind of filled that spot of the crazy sister. And she did a wonderful job. She's just a wonderful actress. So we know that. But I don't know what would have happened if Nancy didn't get sick and pass away. So that was one great question. A lot of times people ask about how to get into the business. A lot of times people are just complimentary and say, hey, you guys took me through a bad time during COVID, or made me laugh, or made me think about things, or, which is very nice to hear. And how much joy the show has given them all these years, and how they watch it with their family now, and their younger kids, and they a father son or mother daughter, or a whole family bond over it. It's quite amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what's also interesting? Speaking of Nancy Marchand, just to touch on that quickly, because obviously she was a phenomenal actress, and her character. It's funny because it's always the actors and actresses that play villains so well that they're the nicest people in real life. I've seen
Yeah,
interviews of,
yeah.
yeah, right. But there was actually an episode where, because she passed away in real life, but they had to conclude her story some way, or they had to kind of show more stuff with her before just completely killing her off.
That was a little weird, the CGI
Yeah, the
stuff.
CGI. I was gonna say, yeah, that was the only thing. But I didn't notice that. Like, I watched the show for the first time. I didn't notice it back then. But then after people commenting on it, then I really started to notice it. But that was the only thing that
I think it
I
was the early days of CGI, it was a little funky.
didn't think it was that bad though. Looking back, people like
No, it
their
wasn't
things.
terrible, but it was a little
Oh,
funky, but they did it, and, you know, I
Yeah.
guess it had to be done. They had to conclude it somewhat, but, sometimes people come up with great questions. That's what makes the show. Each show is different.
Yeah.
We're playing Manhattan for the first time. The only time we ever were in New York City was Staten Island a number of years ago. Now we're in Manhattan in a small theater, 500 seater in August. So that's going to be a great show. Sony All to get their tickets. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You mentioned too some of the common questions about the Russian and the ending scene. Has your perspective ever changed on that just through talking Sopranos and talking with the cast or the fans or anything, or has that just been something you've had your
No,
opinion about?
I used to think I used to think Tony Soprano, maybe it was wishful thinking. I used to think he was alive and well. I
Mhm.
always said he's alive and well living in New Jersey. But then after interviewing some of the writers and directors and David, I kind of changed my mind. And I think Tony Soprano died. I hope I'm wrong, but I kind of think he died. I don't know if we'll ever know. We probably won't. I don't know if there's a definitive answer. You kind of make up your own mind, you know. I changed on that. As far as the Russian, there was talks at one point to bring him back
Oh
uh,
wow.
as a guy that was mentally, obviously half his head was blown off and he was in a wheelchair, and there was talks about bringing him back in some capacity, but that never happened.
Mhm.
That episode, by the way, Steve's hilarious. Pine Barrens, that's one of the
Hey,
funniest. Even with you too. Fuck this. You
it
fucking.
might be one of the funniest, uh, best written episodes of TV ever. It's
Yeah.
just fantastic.
1000%. And tell me a little bit too about, Bobby Bacala, and his character was different from the other characters. And I know, weren't you supposed to just be in one episode and then you ended up becoming one of the main characters? Is it because Bobby was so different from the other characters with violence? And then also too, what was it like when Tony gave the word for the hit? Do you think that changed the character in a way?
Kind of like lost his innocence almost. Yeah.
Well, one, I didn't come in for one episode. I didn't know what I was going to do. I came in, I auditioned. Uh, they didn't guarantee me X amount of episodes, but it was like a recurring guy.
Okay.
But there was nothing written in stone. So if they would have hired me and didn't like what I did, you could just fade off like some people did. Some
Gotcha.
people just faded away, right? There was talk that Bobby inherited Junior. Burt Young, the great Burt Young, who played Bobby's father in one episode, he used to take care of Junior, and he moved to Florida, and Bobby kind of inherited him. Bobby was a head waiter. He grew up in the neighborhood around these guys, but he was cut out of a different cloth than them. Really wasn't his thing. He loved his wife. He didn't have a gomada. He loved his family. I guess he had beaten up some guys and stuff like that, but never killed anyone. You know, uh, the first season I did 6 episodes. Some were just there, uh, and then the following year they made me a series regular, and they moved me to New York. So I had no idea where the character was going or wasn't going. They never told you anything. They didn't tell you much. If you were doing something wrong, you knew it. If you were doing your job like you're supposed to be, that was it.
Mhm.
You really didn't get patted on the back, which is fine. Doing your job, they wrote good stuff. The writing was brilliant. They wrote stuff for you. They were happy with what you were doing, obviously. No one ever described the character. No one said Bobby is this or Bobby is that. Nothing ever from day one. It was on the page. You just kind of figured it out yourself.
Yeah, no, for sure. And also too, I wanna, as I know at the beginning of the episode when we were talking about the dog toys, you have such a close relationship with your dog Willie Boy. It's actually funny. Whenever we go on your Instagram, that's all we see. And we can see how much you're so in love with your dog. And obviously, having a dog, it is like a family member at the end of the day. It's part of your family. And actually, what's interesting, you have an upcoming book, a children's book called Willie Boy Eats the World, which is coming out later this year, I believe. What drew you to writing children's books?
Well, look, you know, I've had a few Dachshunds in the past. This guy has some crazy personality. He's a really funny guy. He's really smart, really funny. So one day I was making a promo in California at a house that we used to do Blue Bloods on Fridays. Hey, watch tonight. I was eating a bag of popcorn. He stuck his whole head in the bag. And he was in there, and then he popped his head out. He was eating, then he put his head back in. And it got 1.5 million views, like by accident. So, wow, look at this. So we started feeding him because he eats literally everything. He eats dog food, but he eats everything. So, pizza, a hero sandwich, tortilla chips. And we would take him out to restaurants and we would feed him. And people loved it. Spaghetti. And
He
then
eats like a true Italian. He eats like a true
Yeah.
Italian.
there was a
That
hero sandwich and it got 16.5 million views. Big hero sandwich. So I had this idea. Wouldn't it be funny? Willie Boy shows me where to eat. Willie Boy takes me around New York City and he shows me different kinds of foods to try new things. So we wrote the book. It's in the middle of being illustrated now. It's really funny. It's a kid's book. The other kid's book, young adult book I wrote called Nicky Deuce, that was made into a movie. It's
Yep.
one of Jim Gandolfini's last movies. Michael Imperioli's in it. Tony Sirico's in it. Johnny Sack is in it. Rita Moreno. We shot it in Montreal. It's one of the most fun things that I got to do. Literally dreamt the book up while I was sleeping. I sold it. We sold it to Nickelodeon, and it's after 7 years, we turned it into a kids' movie. There's a lot of fun. Jim Gandolfini's really funny in it. Michael's funny, and that was great that I was able to do that. And then I did the Goomba series, which are comedy books and kind of making fun of the Italian stereotype. Uh, and then I did one about raising daughters. Big Daddy's Rules, Raising Daughters is tougher than I look. And the Woke Up This Morning, which is kind of an extension of the podcast. And, we talked to 69 cast members and casting people, and we interviewed them all. And that is the ultimate oral history. If you're a Soprano fan, you want to read that. Everything you need to know is in that book.
Yeah, there's even like good photos in here as well. There's so many cool stories,
Yeah, those
photos.
are personal photos of mine and Michael's.
Yeah, no, it's nice. Even with like the books too, like even like writing children's books, like I know that it's obviously like you have to kind of simplify the language for kids, obviously, right? But even like since you are a father, being a father, did that also help influence the way you write those books as well for kids?
Well, you'll be surprised. Kids are smarter than you think, so you don't simplify it that much. There's
Okay.
a little method to that madness.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah, it absolutely. I wrote the young adult books when the kids were younger, for sure. And that was an influence there. And also, when I did Secret Life of the American Teenager, it was a high school show. They offered me 3 episodes, and I gave it to my then 13-year-old daughter. And I asked her I said, read these and let me know what you think, if it's any good. And she thought it was great. So I signed on and I wound up doing 110 episodes, you know. But I took her advice because she knows better than me about high school stuff. So, I certainly did things because of the kids. I did numerous Sesame Street things and a Muppet movie. Me and Tony Sirico did a Muppet Christmas movie. I did numerous things with Tony, with the Muppets and Sesame
Yeah,
Street.
yeah, yeah,
But
wasn't that with Bert and Ernie? You guys were playing Bert and
Bert and
Ernie?
Ernie, we did one, and then we did another one where we play mobsters in a restaurant, and the Ratso and the shrimp come to us for advice. Uh,
Yeah.
Tony loved kids. Tony Sirico loved kids, and he liked doing that stuff. He's funny.
Tell me a little bit more about the Goomba's Guide to Life, because you mentioned too, like it's a fun play on Italian American culture and stereotypes, but I know it has your experiences in it too. Like, what's actually like, how do you balance the line with stereotypes and what's actually true, you know?
Look, we're going to do this forever and ever, right? Italian American groups had problems with the Sopranos, right? That was that whole Columbus Day episode, what was about.
Wow.
They said it made Italians look bad. This is what I think. The mob exists. Let's not kid ourselves. It's a slice of Italian American life. If you're ignorant and think every Italian is a mobster, shame on you. If you think every rapper is a gang member, shame on you. And we could go on and on, stereotypes of Jewish people and of Polish people and Asian people and on and on. So if you're going to be ignorant, shame on you. The Sopranos was, it told a story that does exist that I feel needed to be told. Okay? It also showed Italians in a good light. There was Italian lawyers, there was Italian doctors, there was other Italian people in it, you know, occupations. I with the Goomba books, they were jokes. You might be a Goomba if you have more pinky rings than pinkies. You know, if you wear a jogging suit to a wedding. Something a Goomba never says. Nathan Lane, I adore Nathan Lane. They're just funny, you know? And I don't see anyone getting insulted by that. I did, and I'm going to tell you a funny story. When I did the Nicky Deuce book, Nicky Deuce, it's a book about kids and Goomba, and it's semi-true. Some of the things happened. I grew up in my neighborhood where it's the message behind it, if people took the time to read it, was you can't judge a book by its cover. Because someone may talk like a gangster, or what you perceive to be a gangster, or act like one, or dress like one, doesn't mean he's necessarily one. And then Nicky Deuce, turns out he's a cop, and he's not that, right?
Mhm.
So I get a call from a guy. He was emailing me, get a call for a guy, and I was in Chicago doing a couple of book signings in different Barnes and Nobles, and he was sending letters ahead of time and trying to discourage this. Finally, I called him and I said, "What can I do for you? What is it that you want from me? This is where I grew up. This is a story that I know about. I didn't grow up on the Upper East Side of New York, hoity-toity life. I grew up on welfare. I grew up in a rough neighborhood in Brooklyn. This is the life I know. People all around me were mob guys in the 70s, friends, uncles, my baseball coach, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? This is the world that I grew up in. And I said, "What can I do for you? What makes you happy?" And what do you think he said? "Maybe you could donate to my organization." So he was trying to shake me down.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted. He wanted me to give him money and he was going to back off. He was probably in a basement somewhere doing this. Right? So,
Wow.
as far as I also got a lot of during the Soprano years, "Oh, I don't like that show." "Why not?" "It makes Italians look bad." "Have you seen it?" "No, my friend told me." "Why don't you see it? Why don't you make your own decision?"
Yeah.
Now, tell me you don't like the sex, not for everybody. You don't like the cursing, which to me is silly because it's a word is a word. You don't
Yeah.
like the violence. I get it. It's not for you. I get it. But I don't believe another thing, and we tell this story on the live show. The Pine Barrens was not shot in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. That was shot near West Point, upstate New York. Okay? Outside of Harriman, New York. That's where we shot that. It happened to snow. It wasn't originally written in the snow. The reason why we didn't shoot in the Pine Barrens was there was a politician named James Trefettini, I believe it is. He was a politician. He said the Sopranos made the state of New Jersey look bad, Italians look bad. It said it made blah, 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 blah. So they wouldn't give us the permits to shoot in the Pine Barrens. We shot upstate New York. We stayed in a hotel near West Point. Do you know that he went to jail for fraud, mail fraud, for scams? He actually did time,
Wow.
and he would not give us permits.
Wow. The irony.
Oh my God. And
And
he
on the live show, I show his picture, and I have his real name, James Treffertanti or something like that. Yeah, yeah. And
oh
we
my
show his
God.
picture and everything. Yeah.
It's crazy though, Steve. Because trust me, I feel the same way sometimes. Like people look at the show and they hate on it for no reason. They say, "Oh yeah, this that," makes the times look bad. It's like The Godfather. It's like people sometimes will bash The Godfather, which is one of the greatest, not even just mob movies, one of the greatest movies of all time. People study that.
Absolutely.
And it's like that's if you know movies and you understand that film, it's about family. It's like The Sopranos. It's not a show about the mob.
Absolutely.
It's about family. It's about Tony struggling, balancing both of his families and the inner struggles he has, which makes you fall in love with the guy, which makes it like different from other shows. Before The Sopranos, it's like you said, there was no anti-hero. The Sopranos pioneered shows like Breaking Bad and Ozark and those other shows to come after that. So yeah, I think people just have to look at it with a different lens.
People in general, they also want to put you in a box, just in real life anyway. Oh, the guy's got a vowel at the end of his name. Oh, he must be mobbed up. You'll get remarks from people. You know what annoys me? People, a guy just did it last week, a guy that I didn't know, some business thing, and he texts me, talk to you Monday, you and Willie enjoy Gabagool this weekend. We know the whole Gabagool thing, right?
Yeah.
This guy was saying it. I took it derogatory. It's like saying to a guy, you go eat watermelon this weekend, have some bagels and lox this weekend. Hey, go eat chop suey. What are you talking about, man? You know? There's Italian Americans and from judges to attorneys to doctors, and I have a lot of doctors and I have a lot of Italian doctors. That's what I'm saying. If you're ignorant like that, but in Hollywood, they also, if you're Italian, you're a big guy, I got a raspy voice, they don't want me to play a doctor. But there are doctors that look and
Yeah.
act like me.
Yeah.
I could give you 10 of them right now. There are doctors and there are attorneys and there are judges and there are all these supposed legitimate business guys.
Yeah.
That's what they're like. So if you're going to be stupid and ignorant, shame on you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I feel.
Yeah, no, well said. And even how you're explaining in The Sopranos, it showed people with different professions. And I even liked how in The Sopranos too, it like touched on the stereotypes and talked about it. You said the Columbus episode was dedicated to it and stuff. So it's cool. They like touched on the topics and actually cared to like keep it in the conversation and know like everything. They're aware of everything in that show. It's crazy, you know?
But I also, I'll tell you this, and I've said it publicly before. I think Italians and Italian Americans get lost in this country. We're like the
Yeah,
forgotten group. Oh, they'll be fine. Well, wait a minute. They're getting money, and they're getting money, and they're being taken care of. Wait a minute. Not every Italian American is wealthy.
yeah,
Not every Italian American. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah.
I,
No, we
I don't get it.
I feel like because we obviously post about being Italian American every day, and you read some of the comments people say, and I just feel like if it were another ethnicity, like these people would not be saying like the comments
Well,
are
that's
saying.
what I'm trying to say to you with the food and with the gabagool and with this crap. That's
Yeah,
what I'm trying to say to you. They would
exactly.
not be saying it, and I think they think it's okay to say that. Hey,
Yeah.
I early on, I auditioned for an Olive Garden commercial. They said I was too Italian.
What?
How's that?
Wait,
So
what?
would you say that to another ethnicity?
No, never.
That's ridiculous. That's
You're too
very
this, you're too
ridiculous.
that, you're too this. They told me that. I've had I've had guys on
Wow.
TV shows whisper in my ear, a producer on a game show or something, hey, can you, goomba it up a little? Oh, okay. So you want me to act like a over the top Gavone, right? Hey,
Steve,
oh, hey, oh, hey.
Steve, you know
I
what
don't
that's
act
like?
like
It's
Yeah,
like
that's not how
Stallone.
I act in real life.
It's like
yeah.
Stallone for Stallone. I don't know if I'm sure you know about this, but he auditioned for The Godfather. I think it was for like an extra role. They said he wasn't Italian enough, and he's Italian. He's
Yeah.
like that blows my mind. I know it's crazy.
So, I've got some of that, and I agree with you that they'll say things to us that they wouldn't normally say. They think it's a joke, and I worked in Hawaii years ago, and there's a guy, just a white guy, Hawaii guy, lived there, grew up there. He would make smart remarks to me. Hey, about because I lived in Vegas for many years too. So there I would get some of those remarks until I had to pull him up and warn him not to say that again. He was getting these little quips that I didn't dig. That he wouldn't do to someone else. People are ignorant. A lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. But and I feel like it's, even Shane Gillis said something like Italians are the only ethnicity left you can make fun of. So people just like blatantly know it too, which is something, we got to work on trying to combat. So that's cool. You like straight up tell people, you know. Um,
Yeah. No, no, I hear what you're saying. Like I said, there's that stuff. They think and then you do get some bad things. There was, the mob wives and some things like that don't make Italians look in a good light, housewives, and there was some of that stuff, you know what I mean? Uh, I don't know. But like once again though, if you're somewhere and you're watching this, do you think every single person from New York acts that way?
yeah,
No.
what you
No.
mean. Hmm.
I mean, but people think that, believe me.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, you're watching some, is every you walk down the street in New York or Chicago, you're getting mugged? No.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
You
Everyone thinks
know,
that
oh,
instantly, especially.
I saw that movie. The movie The Warriors. You ever see The Warriors?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
You
a
ever see
good
that movie,
movie.
The Warriors?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
yeah, with the
I
bottles
used
or
to
whatever.
meet people, the bottles at
Yeah,
the
come
end,
out and play.
the
Yeah,
different gangs, the softball gang, and people would say to
good
me,
movie.
"Is that how New York is?" I said, "Really?
What?
Oh yeah,
Really?"
100%. Every time someone's in Chicago too, they're like, "How dangerous really is it here?" Or whatever. It's like, I mean,
Well,
I'm live. You know what I mean? Like, but
and then there's people also do it with people down south,
mhm.
thinking everybody's, a redneck and everyone's, that's not true either.
Yeah, exactly. But touch on a little bit too about your Italian American background and how you grew up and where your family's from. And because I feel like, food super important to you, family super important to you. So it's all, all the values that come with being Italian. You could tell it's there with you.
My, okay, my grandparents were born in Calabria, Riace, Calabria.
Oh, nice.
Both of them. My mother was Jewish, but raised by Italians. Okay, she cursed Italian, cooked Italian, spoke Italian.
Love
You
it.
know, uh, I was raised Catholic. I was baptized. Uh, I had a Jewish side of the family, but I grew up in Bensonhurst, which at the time, 60s and 70s, a big mob enclave kind of. You didn't know who these people were. I grew up with guys that went to jail. I grew up with guys that became doctors and pharmacists and cops and mailmen and the whole gamut.
Yeah.
Uh, it was a middle class neighborhood. It was fun. It was safe. It's changed a lot now. Uh, it's still safe. Still a good neighborhood, just different. Uh, you didn't know, like I said, your baseball coach. I didn't know who he was. The guy across the street. Then you read in the paper the guy went to jail. I said I had no idea. He was just, Joey's uncle or Joey's father or whatever. Uh, it was a good, solid neighborhood with good people in it from all walks of life. We all lived, together. Uh, I remember the good times of Sundays. My aunts, my uncles, my grandparents getting together for Sunday dinner, which not a lot of people do anymore, unfortunately. People are so busy and things going on, but
True.
every Sunday was like Thanksgiving. Every Sunday was a big deal, big food. My grandmother was an incredible cook, homemade macaroni. She made meatballs, lasagna. There was always a roast beef, like two, three courses. They eat all day, then start up again later on in the evening. And like I said, it was like Thanksgiving every Sunday. Everyone knew each other. You grew up with them. You played little league with them. Went to the same schools. I'm still friends with a lot of those people. Mostly Italian American. There wasn't many people in my neighborhood that wasn't Italian American. It was almost all,
Yeah.
almost completely. If you weren't, you were kind of an outsider. Not that anything happened to you, but almost all. You know, uh, you a lot of the teachers were Italian American in elementary school, junior high school. Uh, my daughters went to school in Brooklyn. We've tried to raise them with those kind of values. My wife is Mexican American. They have very similar values. We had big Sunday dinners, family parties, kids with communion, confirmation, baptized, big parties. We had a big wedding. We got married in Vegas, me and my wife, years ago. Uh, you know, uh, that was kind of even now. We're together Christmas Eve and the holidays, and we have our traditions. And it doesn't, it's not carried down that much, but it still is. I see here, and like I'm in New York, but Staten Island and Jersey and Brooklyn, it's still happening.
Yeah.
Good to
100%.
see.
No,
100%.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and also too, what I really like, even just about how you brought up about Italian Americans, sometimes they're categorized for some of the roles, like, oh, if you're big and you have a raspy voice, you won't get
Absolutely.
mocked. So, yeah, but what's really good is that in Blue Bloods you play a cop, which is different. You see a different side of you, which is nice. And also a fun fact, people probably don't know this, is that you didn't have any experience with police work, and you had to learn all that from scratch. And what's cool is that obviously you had to learn the lingo, learn how to handcuff people, and you nailed it and did so well that real NYPD officers have told you that your performance is 1,000% accurate and that they've worked with guys just like you. But was there any part of learning that side of that world that you had a hard time picking up? Like it was harder than expected?
Well, first of all, when I got on The Sopranos, when you got off of The Sopranos, that's when it was worrisome because the show was so massive, so big that it was like, uh-oh, I'm just going to get calls to play mob guys forever. I was okay with that. I didn't have a career before then. I had a whole different life. I was an executive at the Riviera in Las Vegas. I had a different life. I was 40 years old. Okay. I really talked to my agent, conscious effort to try to do something else. There's an Italian American everything, everything, not just mobsters. They're everything in all walks of life. Every job, you name it, there's an Italian American in there. I got cast The Secret Life of the American Teenager playing a suburban dad. He really didn't even have an Italian last name. He lived in the suburbs. He was raising his son. I did 5 years on that show, and that kind of got me out of the mob thing a little bit. I also was very reluctant. You keep getting offered mob stuff, and unless it was any good, I didn't want to do it because most of it is not good stuff. It's not The Godfather or Goodfellas or The Sopranos. Most of it is not. You know, I didn't want to do that stuff. I didn't care for that. It doesn't do anything for me artistically or anything like that, creatively. So I hosted some other things out of Toronto. I did some shows for Discovery, these kind of live documentary kind of shows, which I enjoyed doing. And then I went in for 1 or 2 episodes on Blue Bloods. I got the role and I did 146.
Wow.
I knew nothing about shooting a gun. I'm not a gun guy, stuff like that. Matter of fact, I'm terrible with guns. I owned the guns in Las Vegas just for personal use. You could go, when I first moved to Las Vegas, you could go to like a Woolworths or like any store with your driver's license and buy a gun. Just like that. Like,
Wow.
Hey, I want to buy, here's my license. I want to buy a gun. I had a gun. I was taking it out of my pocket. I was in my laundry room and I shot a 44 caliber. I shot it into the washing machine.
My
A
God.
hole this big. I swear to God. It's the second time I had like a mishap. I said, that's it. I'm getting rid of the guns. I got rid of it. Guns are not for me.
Oh,
Right?
God.
So uh, when I got on Blue Bloods, we have a technical advisor named Jim Nusiforo. He was a New York City detective. He helps with all that stuff. How to hold a gun, how to handcuff someone, how to hold your badge, where to put your badge. I knew none of this. They make it look easy on TV. It's not easy. To handcuff someone I couldn't handcuff a 100-year-old woman. It's next to impossible. And the guys are fighting you, they're strong. You're trying to get handcuffs on them. So I learned all this stuff, and he's there with you every step of the way. So that was good. How to hold a badge and just little things that you don't think of. Like I remember once it was a murder scene, and I was drinking a cup of coffee, and I'm looking around and go, no, 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 no. You don't bring a cup of coffee onto a murder scene. I didn't think of that. So there's all these, things of fingerprints and all the things you got to know, the lingo. And I learned all that, and I enjoyed it very much playing a cop. And I like nothing more than when a cop would come up to me and say, hey, man, I love you on that show. And I would go, do you believe me? And they said, oh, 1,000%. I know a lot of guys like you. And that made me feel good because let's not kid ourselves. What does it come down to as an actor? I'm playing a role. Do you believe me or you don't believe me? Do you believe Steve's a cop? Do you believe Steve's a mob guy? Do you believe Steve's an English professor? Maybe not. Maybe you do. But that's really, we're watching a movie and you go, I don't believe that guy for 1 second. He don't scare me. I don't believe he's a mob guy, or I don't believe that guy's a doctor. He talks like an idiot, or a lawyer. Whatever the case may be, Italian or not Italian. It's like, do you believe him or do you don't believe him?
Yeah, some people are not made for certain roles. Yeah.
So I enjoyed that very much. And instead of mob guys coming up to you, giving you tips on mob stuff, I had cops giving me tips. So I enjoyed that better, Because, you're in a bar or in a restaurant and a mob guy comes up to you and says, let me tell you about that scene, that scene, anybody who ever killed anyone knows that's not how you do it. I went, oh, okay, buddy. I got to get going. I got to go to the laundry. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
You got some of that stuff. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. I used to get calls all the time. Oh, my boyfriend would be perfect for The Sopranos. Really? Has he ever acted? I mean, really? He's you know how to do this? You think it's easy?
Yeah.
You have 150 people looking at you and the camera's on you, and you got to deliver a line and drink a drink or eat something. It's very difficult.
It's
Yeah.
very
Not
difficult.
so
Yeah.
easy.
And you know what? It's crazy, Steve, because obviously when you're acting, like obviously shows, movies, a lot of the times you're doing multiple takes, it's hours on end. But obviously one of the people you worked with, Clint Eastwood, he's known for doing things in like one or two takes. And being in his 90s, this guy's still delivering fantastic films. He just did a film called Juror Number Two. I haven't
Yeah, it was
seen it
great.
yet. I haven't seen it yet, but I heard great things. Nicholas Holt's in it, along with many other talented actors and actresses. But you know, doing things in one or two takes for Jersey Boys, Hereafter, the films that you were in with him, was that a challenge for you? Did you like that style of his directing? Like,
I did because he casts who he wants, so you better be prepared. You don't have much time to you don't have much time. You better know your stuff, you better be prepared, you better have in your head, you better do your prep work before you get there. You know? Don't get me wrong, he's not rushing you. When he feels he has it, he has it. But you better be prepared, and he's hiring you to bring this character, So there's not a whole lot of time, and sure, you're not going to get a whole lot of direction out of him. I remember doing the first take, and I said, "We close, boss? Are we in the ballpark?" He said, "Absolutely. Now you just go do your thing." I played a chef, and then I played a small role of a barber. I was up for a bigger role. They gave me the role of a barber. It's only 4 lines, but I wasn't going to turn down Clint Eastwood to get a chance to work with him for a second time. The first time I enjoyed it. I worked 3 days, and we wound up having dinner here in New York, and I enjoyed every moment of it immensely. I did a lot of preparation and a lot of work for that. I also, on Secret Life, you didn't get many takes either. So it's not for everybody. Some people have to ease into it. Sopranos, you did. Blue Bloods, you kind of did. You got to ease into it. But TV, you're shooting 8 days. The network TV is 42 minutes, and you're shooting it in 8 days. There's not a whole lot of time. You got to know your stuff. Got to come prepared, man. A lot of people aren't prepared. They won't ask you back. If you're wasting time and, you're not getting the scene, and, you're wasting time, you don't know your lines, and you got 100 people waiting around, and you're costing production money,
You can get booted off. Yeah.
you know.
And Steve, you have a lot, like it's inspirational, like listening to you talk about what it takes to become an actor, but you're successful in a lot of other areas too. Like, you're an author, you got a Nickelodeon, you sold the podcast to HBO with your social media, you're doing well. Like, you seem to be doing well in a lot of different areas. What like advice would you give to someone like me who's an entrepreneur trying to grow my business? And you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to juggle that much stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but for many years, even before I got into the business, I hustled, legitimate stuff, of course. I used to book acts at the casino, and then I opened up my own agency, and I would book outside acts and stuff like that, and you know, uh, you know, trying to grow that stuff, and I did. Even while I was on The Sopranos, where a lot of people would say, "You're still doing that?" Yes, I did. I was a consultant to the hotel after I left. I thought I could still do it. I was constantly working, working the phones, on the phones, right? I knew if I waited as an actor, listen, I'm not George Clooney, I'm not Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm not talented like that. I'm not disappear into those roles where, Gary Oldman is a different guy, Christian Bale, these
Daniel Day
incredible,
Lewis. Yeah.
incredible guys. So I had to do other things. I do things my way. I turn down a lot of stuff. I've turned down every single reality show known to man. Every single one. I don't want to dip my toe in that world. It's not for me. For some people, it might be great. Not for me. So things that I feel good about, very few things. I've been making a living as an actor for 25 years. Very few things I've done that I was ashamed of, right? Uh, the books I enjoyed tremendously. Uh, the podcast, I try to learn as much about things. Before I wrote a book, I knew nothing about it. And I learned, and I talked to people, and I learned, and now I could tell you every which way about a book, every single thing there is to know, from the getting an agent to a publisher, and on and on and on, and how it all's going to work, and the publicist and the book signings. I can tell you all of that. And the same thing, I learned, I pitched a lot of shows. I sold 5 or 6 shows over the years. Some, were made, some, went nowhere. But, I learned how to go into the room and pitch and characters and team up with someone. My philosophy, and I tell my daughters this, we never stop looking for a job. Steve Schirripa never stops looking for a job. Even if I have 3 of them, I don't stop looking for 'em. Nothing bad, nothing cheesy, but just that next thing. What's the next thing? You know, I know about booking a live show in a theater and a promoter and how much we should be getting paid. And I know all of that. I learned.
Yeah.
Ask questions, learn. Don't just put blinders on. A lot of actors have blinders on. I don't know, whatever my agent says. Listen, I can make my own decisions. What
Hmm.
my agent said, what the agent, I can make a decision. I'm a grown man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you got to be honest. I look people in the eye. My handshake is a bond, man.
I love
I
that.
never go back on my word with anybody. If we
Yeah.
got a deal, we got a deal. It may turn out to be not a great deal for me at some point, but if I shake hands and we got a deal, we got a deal.
I love that. That's old school, man. Not too many people do that
Yeah.
anymore. You know what I mean? They go back on their word and stuff. So
Well,
I love
that's why a lot of people when we say Hollywood, a lot of people in this business are liars.
hmm
They
Yeah.
don't want to tell you the truth. I would prefer you tell me the truth.
Yeah.
Tell me the role's not going to happen, or to tell me the truth. Don't. I don't need to be coddled or bullshitted. Tell me the truth.
Yeah.
I
Love
can
it.
handle it. I tell my daughters the same thing. You look people in the eye, you shake their hand, and we never stop looking. No matter how comfortable or great a job it is, we're always looking for the next thing.
Mhm. Awesome.
Exactly.
Oh,
No, I
thanks
love
for
that,
that.
Steve. Yeah, no, it's amazing. Thank you so much for all the stories and I think we're gonna wrap it up. We got some great stuff here, and I hope you enjoyed your time today, Steve. We had a
Thank you,
great
man.
time.
Good luck to you
Oh, yeah.
guys. It was a
Yeah.
Yeah,
pleasure
Thanks.
and
talking to both of you.
yeah, and we'll stay in touch. We'll get you those dog toys and everything too.
Please do. Willie Boy
Yeah.
will wear it. I promise.
Thanks,
Okay.
Steve. We'll be in
Thanks.
touch,
Yeah.
man.
Really
Thanks so
appreciate it.
much.
Had a blast. Thank
You
you.
guys, take
Okay.
care.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Take care.